Hello, everyone. I'm Ed Densel, and I host Unfound, and I run this YouTube channel. I realize you don't want to give a thumbs up to the following video until you watch it. You know what? That's totally understandable. I can appreciate that. But what you can do right now is subscribe to this channel. The button is right there. Thanks. Bradley Chace Stracener was a 30-year-old from Leesville, Louisiana. He had 3 siblings and was very mechanically inclined. On the afternoon of October 30th, 2019, Bradley left his mother's to return his girlfriend's car to her. Bradley never arrived. The car was found only a half-mile down the road. He was never seen again. I'm Ed Densel, and this is Unfound. Unless you live under a rock, you know Top Gun Maverick is now playing in theaters. I've seen it. It's fantastic. In both the original and the sequel, the main theme is a pilot must be ready to push to the very edge and even go over it to accomplish a mission. And this is real life for people defending their countries today. For the rest of us in real life, the opposite is almost the case. The biggest risk we take is driving. Yet, for disappearances, we know of many people who probably went missing because of also living on the edge like fighter pilots, but in bad ways. Drugs, horrible friends, tumultuous relationships, money problems, all combining to put these people in what the airplane industry calls the coffin corner, a place so close to death that one wrong move and that's it. Some unfound examples: Jake LaChale, Jamie Bowen, Leah Peebles, Donnie Smatlack. Well, with the disappearance of Bradley Stracener, he certainly had some of those issues going on, despite him otherwise being a brilliant young man. How do we find out what happened to him when he went into the danger zone? And now a summary of the case. This is brought to you by my friend Megan Linez's website, charleyproject.org. Bradley Stracener was some kind of amateur mechanical and electrical whiz. Yes, he was a welder by trade, but when Bradley wasn't doing that, he was showing his friends and family all sorts of tricks with magnets and wires. Bradley had been married, but it didn't work out. The union, however, did produce a son, Oliver. Yet, this was also a source of pain for Bradley due to the mother withholding visitations at various times. This caused Bradley to drop into a depression and become an addict, a condition he still had at the time of his disappearance. So, on October 30th, 2019, Bradley was at his mother's. The day was like any other. In the afternoon, Bradley was due to take his girlfriend's car back to her and, in the process, pick up her son, Easton, at school. Bradley left. Everything seemed fine. However, Easton did not get picked up. Bradley did not return his girlfriend's car. He was never seen again. Less than 5 hours after Bradley left his mother's, a half-mile away, a woman who coincidentally was Bradley's former boss's ex-wife noticed a car at the edge of her property. It was the girlfriend's. There were no signs of foul play. The area was searched, and nothing of note was found. We cover all types of disappearances on Unfound. This also means we cover all types of people. One of the most common is that person who, at his or her core, is as good as can be. Yet, choices made without pressure put them in positions to be more susceptible to disappearances than others. I would like you to think about that as you try to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1. What could have gone wrong so quickly that hour between Bradley leaving and his appointment to pick Easton up? Number 2. What are we to make of the car being found right next to Bradley's former supervisor's ex-wife's property? And number 3. How do we determine if a story about Bradley finding foul play at an acquaintance's house is true or not? Bradley's family believes foul play occurred, especially since searches in the area of the abandoned car turned up nothing. The guest for this episode is Bradley's mother, Tony James Doyle. Unfound news. That you're hearing this podcast means you got the new upload on this feed this past Tuesday, June 7th. The live show, which has been on YouTube exclusively for 4.5 years, is now an audio show. I hope you enjoy it and find it informative when you receive it every Tuesday from now on. Finally, the most recent Unfound now has been released to the public on Unfound's YouTube channel. It concerns the disappearance of Marie Peter Toltz from Los Angeles in April. Well, it actually covers a little bit more than that. You'll have to listen to it to understand what I mean.
Where you can find Unfound. On these following podcast platforms: Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and many others, especially outside the United States. Social media sites: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the newest one, TikTok. Listener support sites: patreon.com/unfound podcast, paypal.me/unfound podcast. The website, theunfoundpodcast.com. The email address, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. And please mention Unfound at all true crime websites and forums. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the mother of Bradley Stracener, Tony James Doyle. Tony, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you. How are you doing today? I'm glad to finally get here.
Yes. Everybody should know that Tony and I have been talking to each other for a while. And finally, she has made some time. She's a very busy woman. In fact, later today, she's going to be doing another interview regarding her son's disappearance. So we want to make sure we cover everything, and then so she can get whisked off to her other appointment here. So I'm glad she's making some time on Memorial Day of all times.
In the good old southern heat.
Yes, in this good old southern heat to join me. So Tony, welcome. And let's just start right here. Let's just talk a little bit about your family. Of course, Bradley is your son. Do you have any other children? What are their ages? Where does Bradley fall in the line? Let's talk a little bit about that.
I do. I have 3 other children. I have an older daughter. She is, oh my gosh, you put me on the spot. I have to sit there and figure that up. She's 30. She's 34.
Okay.
Then Bradley. Bradley's my oldest son. And then I have another son, Logan. That's his younger brother. They're 14 months apart.
Okay.
And then I have a younger daughter. She just turned 26.
Wow. So you had the The daughter and the daughter, oldest and youngest.
Two
And then
boys, the
two
two
boys
mean ones, and then
in the sandwich.
yes.
Okay. All right. How would you, comparing Bradley to your other children, very alike, very different personalities. How would you compare and contrast?
Total opposite ends of spectrums.
Oh.
They were all raised together, but very profound and very different. Their own personalities, their own interests.
Mhm.
The only thing that they really had in common, as far as my two boys, was athletics.
Mhm.
They were both football, basketball, and baseball players.
Wow.
And that's
Mhm.
about it. They didn't do dance with the girls or anything.
Okay.
And the girls didn't play football. They opted not to do that.
Okay.
But they were all so totally different. It was really fun. I say fun raising it. Sometimes it wasn't. When you tried to get everybody to agree on something, it was impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got four different views, and it was just like, there's no sense asking. We're just going to do the damn thing. We just got to do it. We're going to do it my way, because y'all can't decide. We're doing it my way.
Would you say
But,
that the boys were like too close together? The girls, of course, age separation, or did one of the boys get along with one of the girls better? How did that all?
The boys were very close. My husband and I separated when they were very small. And Logan, actually, my younger son, even though there was just such a small age difference between the two boys, he actually looked up to him like a father figure. And Bradley always jumped into that role. Like, he was more mature, and it wasn't, oh, let's go do this, let's go be mean or do something stupid or not come home or whatever. He's like, no, you better be home by. I mean, he fathered him, and in 14 months difference,
Wow.
And that's how he looked up to him like that. That's his dad, like he was his father. He was his father figure. The girls, they didn't care. They just wanted the boys out of the house.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. All right. So we got a very dynamic, it sounds like, house right there. Two girls, two boys in the middle. A lot of stuff going on. I think that's the way maybe a lot of homes are, with many children like that. So thank you for explaining that. So you've already talked a little bit about Bradley himself kind of being a father figure to his younger brother. But what about his personality? Let's just move into him specifically. Personality, hobbies, interests. Let's just talk about Bradley. Maybe the most important things to know about him as a person.
Bradley was the deep thinker.
Mm-hmm.
Bradley liked to study Socrates, Plato.
Wow.
Tesla, he actually had perfected Tesla's theory of electric or magnetic energy. He called me at 3 a.m. in the morning. We lived a couple of apartments away from each other. He said, "Mom, come down here, hurry. I think that something's wrong." I go running down there, open the door. He said, "Stick your finger in their hole and swing it." I said, and he's got these two things. I go, no, Mom's finger's not going anywhere into that machine to twist anything. Sorry. And he actually his storage building had electricity ran by magnets. There was no power hooked up to them. And the prototype is actually said his dad's in his truck, locked up. He wore a lot of intelligence. I had so many people, older people, that would ask me, where did he learn all this stuff? He's only 30 or 28. Where did he? How does he know this stuff? I don't know. I didn't teach him. He's teaching me how to run electrical wires.
He didn't have any.
I have no clue.
He didn't have any formal education in this area. Take any mechanical or electrical classes or anything like that?
No, he was in school for welding. Welding's what he did. Okay. But he made me learn how to wire a house. I had come home one day, and he had a big pallet, and he had electrical socket, and he had a light socket, and he had a 220, like a dryer socket on there,
Wow.
and he had the wires, and he said, now then, hook that up. Don't forget what I told you about electricity has to have a constant circuit. It's constant current flowing. Now hook that up and make all of that stuff work. No, you're doing it wrong. Start over. And I'm like, what is this? Is this a test? Because I didn't get the memo. I didn't study.
Yeah, right.
I just always wanted to make sure I was self-sufficient.
Wow.
Maybe because he didn't like having sun-do lists or whatever. He didn't want me doing myself. But regardless, he very well prepared me, and now I'm finding to my boss that I have to play like I don't know these things, because it's much easier for me to do them and become the Maytag man and the new everything. So he doesn't have to call anybody else, because I know how to do it. So, but
well, I'm wondering, playing with electricity can be dangerous. Do you know if any
I
ever
don't
hurt
like
himself or anything like that? I mean, especially with 220 with the dryer electricity. I mean, that can be lethal.
Oh, when he was little, he did. But not when he was older. He stuck a key in a light socket and burned it all the way up. But bigger, no.
Okay.
No,
so no formal education, just but his work was welding.
Correct. He went to community school. He went through a program here that we have where they go to high school in the morning, and in the afternoon they take the trade, and then they graduate and he was a licensed welder and got his diploma on the same day.
Wow. How old was he when he did that?
17.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he actually was working on a job at the hospital, one of the hospitals here illegally, because he was supposed to be 18.
Okay.
And they called for their best welder, and that's who they sent out there. So they didn't do anything. He went.
Okay.
So,
and we're going to get into this relationship. Of course, we're going to be talking about Chelsea quite a bit. But did he have any children? How many kids? How old?
Yes, he did. It's Oliver. Oliver is my pride and joy. He looks just like his father.
Yeah.
I have just got to see him. Thank God. It's been a long time. I got to see him Christmas of last year for the first time in 4 years.
Oh my.
And a lot of animosity between divorce, breakups. I mean, just it just was messy. And I just cried. I my whole way there, I was trying to psych myself up, going like, "You're not going to do this. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do this." I pull up, I get out, and this child still remembers me from when he was 3. He got out of the car and he come with his arms wide open, Nana, and just grabbed me. And I said, "Oh my God!" And
so
yes, I just was a blubbering idiot.
So is he like 7 now? How old is he? How old is Oliver?
He just turned 8.
Just turned 8, a fantastic age, right?
And extremely smart. He can speak on an adult level. He could sit at a table and speak with any of my colleagues, any of my college friends that I went to school with that come to the house, and keep up with them in tone and most of the time, if the subject matter isn't out there, difficult, he will, and very respectful. It's amazing. I'm pleased with what his mother's done.
Wow,
with him.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds the way you've explained Bradley, it sounds like Oliver got his brains from his dad. If he's smart and all this, obviously that's maybe the IQ points went down to Oliver.
I think so, because mommy's a little goofy sometimes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So, and we'll get back into that a little bit later. All right. So he's a welder. He became a welder at 17, 18 years old. And how was he doing it in that career? I would think with his brains and everything, he'd be doing pretty well. How was he doing?
He got bored.
Did he?
He got bored, and he completely switched. He started working with one other guy doing remodel work, and was building elevators and installing welding, making and installing elevators. in lake houses, and he was in very high demand. I've got a stack of his stuff at the house where he had, the estimates and stuff, and he drove a truck in between that 18-wheeler. He wanted to do that for a little while,
Okay.
and then he said, "Nah, I'm done with that." He wanted to experience everything. He was ADHD, they said. And I hate that they throw everybody in that box, because that's not always the case.
That's true.
A quest for knowledge is a quest for knowledge. It doesn't mean that you have a disorder. It means that your mind wants to know more. You're absorbing everything, so you got to put something else in there.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of like he was. He used to tell me, "No, I can't go to sleep yet, Mama." I say, "Why?" Because I haven't figured this out yet. And he would not. And it wouldn't be just like figuring out how to turn the lamp switch off from the other side. It'd be something complex. I've got to figure this out. I can't go to sleep. I have to. I remain true to myself. He said, and that is to learn something every day. And it's something important and something big, not to cross the road without looking both ways.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be something with some kind of substance to it.
So,
okay, they might argue.
So what work was he doing at the time of his disappearance in 2019? What was his what kind
He
of
was
career
doing
was he?
remodels. He was doing remodels.
Okay.
He had like 9 remodels lined up. It seemed like when he did one, then the neighbor, and then the next neighbor, and then the next neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he was doing out at lake houses out around us. They started one right after the other. And
yeah, and you said that they were putting talked about elevators and lake houses. This must have been some fancy lake houses that have elevators in them.
A couple of them were. A couple of them weren't. They were just some elderly people. A couple of them were elderly
I got
people
you, yeah.
that couldn't get. It wasn't safe for them to try to get up the stairs real well.
Right.
And so he built the elevators himself, and welded them and put them in for them, so that it got them from the bottom floor just to the top, just the simple one to get them, where the stairs were, to get them up there safely. But
so let's move on. So he's working, very smart guy. Of course, has a child, Oliver, that he needs to support. We're going to get into a relationship with a particular woman here in a moment. But we do need to talk about a few issues that were going on before his disappearance. What was the issue with his truck? This is going to play an important part because he was driving somebody else's car at the time. What exactly happened with his truck? Where was it getting worked on? What was the problem as you understand it?
His motor had went out in his truck, or he'd done something to it. I blew it up. It didn't run.
Oh, okay.
He had to buy a new one, and he had just got the new one put in. It was not complete. He didn't have the oil pan. By the way, he was a mechanic too.
Okay.
A badass mechanic. And he didn't have the oil pan. Just the basic. Everything was hooked in, but the little stuff put back in yet. And so he was driving Chelsea's car that day. And
okay, so you were driving his truck and something happened to it.
I wasn't driving.
Who was driving it?
He was driving it.
He was driving. Okay, he was driving.
Don't blame that on me. Yeah, I didn't do that.
All right. So, okay, I thought you said his mother, meaning you were kind of talking about yourself in the third person.
Oh no,
okay.
No.
All right. So he was driving it. Something happens to the engine. It blows up or something.
Right, probably because he was a race car driver too, and had a very heavy foot.
Mm-hmm.
And even if something went wrong with the vehicle, he drove it fast until it just would stop.
Okay. How long, if you can remember, of course, this disappearance just occurred in 2019, but if you can remember, how long did this happen before he went missing? How long? A month?
The truck?
3 weeks? Yeah. How much? Yeah. How long?
The truck, probably 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks.
It wasn't a month. It wasn't a month. It wasn't a full month.
Okay. And would you say then that we're going to get into Chelsea in here in a moment, but would you say that right after that happened, did he end up driving Chelsea's car immediately, or was that a common thing that he went right from driving his truck to then, did she offer up his car? How did that all work?
Well, how they worked out the logistics, I really don't know.
Okay.
I didn't hear the conversation, but
Mhm.
if I can voice
Okay,
my opinion,
maybe
I
I'll
can
ask you
tell
this
you
way. Was
my
it common?
opinion says
Uh,
Bradley told her, "I'm taking your car and
oh,
I'll bring it back in a little while."
okay. I guess what I'm
He
asking
can
you,
be very
Tony.
authoritative.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking you, Tony, is how common was it after his truck blew up for him to be driving Chelsea's car? How common was
Oh,
it?
all the time,
All the
all the
time.
time.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. Thank you. Let's move on to this. Now, obviously, we have to talk about this. We just have to. We're not going to harp on it or spend too much time on it. But at some point, Bradley had developed an addiction. We, once again, don't want to hit this too hard, but how did that happen? What is your understanding? How long it had been going on? How much did he struggle with it?
He started struggling with it when him and Morgan, his wife,
Okay.
split up, and she took Oliver from him. Like
Oh.
there was nothing in place there was nothing in court in place yet for him to see him, and Oliver was his life. That little boy, I mean, he would
Yeah.
stand up on a stool and tell his mother and point his finger, a little bitty finger, at 2 years old in her face and tell, "I want my daddy." I mean, he was a daddy's boy. And it was like he went into self-destruct mode. It was like, you took everything.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
That's I get it. You don't have to apologize. I understand.
It took everything that meant something to him.
Yeah.
And it was special to him. That was just to him, the closest between the two of them. They were always together. He, at 2 years old, Oliver was under vehicles working on him with him. Greasy. I mean, he took him everywhere. Fishing. He was going down the road slow, looking out the windows for deer tracks. I mean, he was everywhere with Bradley, everything. And then just for her all of a sudden decide, okay, well, I want to hurt you. So guess what? I'm taking him. So here we go. Now you figure out, go get all this money and pay all these people. And well, they might let you sleep. Well, but how long is that going to take? Here, it takes a long time.
What, in your opinion, what happened? They were married, he and Morgan. In your opinion, what happened to their marriage? What
I
was the
mean,
cause of their divorce?
his mother, I meant his mother, her mother.
Her
Yeah.
mother-in-law. Okay.
Yeah, because she insisted when they got married that they live with her, and
Hmm.
and then she had Oliver, so she had just bought a brand new big manufactured double wide 6-bedroom 4-bathroom this big old thing, and
Wow.
Bradley was paying. He was paying the notes on the thing to be there. I mean, to stay the whole note,
Mm-hmm.
and she wouldn't let them have their life like they were a young couple. They were just married, just had a child.
Yeah.
She had to put her 2 cents into everything. They couldn't get into an argument. They couldn't get into heated words to try to figure things out and work it out on their own. She always right in the middle. Oh no, you need to do it this way. You need to do it that way. Oh, you can't do the baby this way. He got mad. That's my son. I'll do what I want to. I'm not stupid, And it was just a constant. She even had him arrested.
Oh my.
She had him arrested for bringing a table saw to my house from their house to make it. They were making a table at my house and called the police and told them he stole it from his house. He's got the keys, paid the notes on the house, and they arrested him.
Why do you think he agreed to that living arrangement? I think most couples would be, no matter, where they live, who they are, how long they've been married, living with a parent would be like, no, we're not doing that. Why do you think that Bradley went along with that?
For Morgan, because her mom was single, she couldn't afford, she wasn't working, didn't have nothing on her own, and
Okay.
That was the only option for her.
Okay. All
But
right.
to me, I would think that was her only option. She would have treated it just a little bit with more finesse, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, none of us were there to see. I believe you. If Bradley was telling you these things, I totally believe it. But I think that that just seems like an odd choice. I mean, being married for the first time or early in a marriage is tough enough. To add something like that on top of it, yeah, it sounds very difficult. But what year did Morgan and Bradley get divorced? What year was that?
Mm,
To try to help
a
you
good
out, of
question.
course, he went missing in 2019. Would you say they got divorced in 2017, 2016, a couple years before he went missing, or what would you say?
Probably 26, 15-ish, 16-ish.
Okay.
End of 15 or beginning of 16.
Okay. All right. So
Because
they
they
get
were
divorced.
actually only married 1 year.
Oh my. Okay. But she then gets custody of Oliver, and then, as you stated, it gets Bradley on this downward spiral, getting into drugs. Um, how bad was it, in your opinion? I'm not saying you were around him all the time, but in your opinion, how bad was it?
I think it was pretty severe it progressed rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an incident where Bradley, she was told, he said, okay, I'm going to let you see Oliver. And he was, oh my God, he was excited. He couldn't sleep. I think I was supposed to tell him earlier. I was saying he took like 4 showers, like just the morning to go meet them at the sheriff's department. And she shows up, and Oliver's not with her. And she showed up like she was a police officer or whatever, and with a drug test, and said, "Here, I'll go with you and watch you pee in this cup, and if you can pass that, then you can see him." Well, he wasn't on. But that's not her.
That's not her job to do that.
On.
No.
He said, "I'm not going to repeat the words he said, but they weren't nice, and it was kind of you and I'm out of here. You didn't. Where's my son? You didn't even bring him." And left. And he said, "Not again. You will not. You are." And yeah, that was a bad day.
Okay.
And that just made things worse.
Okay.
Much
worse. And so, did he go back to, after he got divorced, did he go back to living with you? And we're going to get into Chelsea here in a second, but did he go back to living with you? Did he live with friends? What did he do after all this happened?
Well, for a while, we both lived. He was remodeling an apartment complex for some people that we knew in DeRitter. Mm-hmm. And so it's in separate apartments there, because he didn't let Mom get too far away from him, because I'm sick, and he just didn't let me get very far away from him. And then I moved to, when they finished the job, I moved to another town right next to that one, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to come with you." And then he met her, and he stayed down there a lot, but he never moved in with her for quite some time, and was only there a short time, maybe 2 months. Mm-hmm. And she has.
We're talking about Chelsea, and we're talking about. Just want to be clear, we're talking about Chelsea.
Yes.
Okay.
She has the police convinced. Yes, he was still living. He was still living there. No, he wasn't. You were in the floor of our house. He was telling you, "I don't want anything to do with you." What part of that do you not understand? 3 days before, with both of her arms wrapped around his legs, screaming that it's not fair. And I'm embarrassed for every female in the world at that point, watching this grown woman do this on the floor, willing her, "Girl, get up, just get up, just get up. You're embarrassing yourself." And but she still had, in her mind, she needed them to believe for some reason that he was living at her house, which I found very.
All right. Well, we're getting maybe a little ahead of ourselves. Let's just talk about how Bradley and Chelsea met. How he gets divorced, obviously tough time, starts this addiction phase, which I think a lot of fathers would understand. And how did he end up meeting Chelsea, though? How did that all happen? Who is
softball game?
Softball game.
I meant not softball. A little league game.
Little league game.
Little league baseball, t-ball game.
Okay. Was Bradley there? Was Oliver playing or something? Or
yes, Oliver was playing. Morgan was pissed that he showed up, but he was smiling because he did show up. Mm-hmm. he was he was being a butt. He was going, I'm going to show her because she'd sent a message, don't you show up at his games. He said, what are they going to do? Kick me out? I've got just as much right to be there. I'm have to sit by her, but I'm going. And he did. And they met there, but they knew each other and they didn't realize they knew each other. Chelsea and Bradley were like, this is the South. They were like fifth, sixth cousins somewhere down the line, twice removed. So that's what's made it really weird is because I know like these are our family. This is like it's a hot mess. It's a train wreck.
What did you think about Bradley and Chelsea as a couple?
I threw a fit.
Did you?
Yes.
Why is that?
I threw a phony fit, huh? Well, but Chelsea's never been able to stay anywhere very long, and her track record of choices of people and the way she's treated them has never been positive. And the way she handles responsibilities, like she has two other kids. When she left, she just left them. She, you know, just
so did so. Not, all right. So did she know? Did you know about Chelsea before Chelsea and Bradley ever met?
Yes, I babysat Chelsea when she was a newborn.
Oh, you did? Oh my gosh! Well, I didn't know that. You babysat her when she was little, and then all these years later, she ends up dating your son.
Yes.
Oh my gosh!
Her mother and I were cheerleaders together at West Point.
Wow. I didn't know that either. Okay, well then you knew about her, and then all those years later, Bradley.
But I didn't know who she was when he brought her around.
Oh, you did. Oh, you didn't.
Who is that? He said.
Okay.
I don't know who that is, and my daughter's going, "Who in the hell? What is that he just brought on?" I said, "I don't know." Okay. And then after she leaves, I'm going, "Oh no! Wait, hold up, Bradley. You might need to know something here now. Now, your grandpa's his cousin. That's your grandpa's nephew's." And started. Oh, that's not close enough. I'm not worried about that. He said.
Okay, I got you. So you babysat. All right, so you babysat her all those years later, and how long were they a couple before he went missing?
From May to October.
All right, so not very long.
No, not long at all.
Not long at all.
And she kicked him out of the house when he did stay there once a day and twice on Sunday. And I do mean that literally.
Okay.
I
picked so him they were living together
on a Sunday.
So they were living together
a little bit of time. Yeah, the little bit of time they did. Yes.
Okay. So they met.
Very, very unstable.
She and Bradley were a couple, and he was driving her when we going way back to when his truck broke down. When his truck broke down roughly 3 weeks before he went missing, he ended up driving Chelsea's car around.
Right.
Okay. And what was she driving?
Nothing. She was riding.
She was riding. Okay. All right. All right. So they're a couple. He has a child from a previous relationship. You stated that Chelsea also had a couple kids from a prior relationship, right?
And she had a son with her, the same age as Oliver.
Okay. All right. So
it was in Oliver's class at school.
Wow. Okay. All right. So they were living together at the time of the disappearance or not? You told me they kicking out and everything, but just in general, were they living together or not?
He had been home. He had been back to my apartment for about a month and a half.
Wow.
And but she continues to insist that he was living there. She's
okay. I'm not. We don't want this to degenerate into a bash Chelsea session. All right. We just want to.
No, I'm not. But what I'm saying is she and her basis for that was because we were fixing to move. I was fixing to move to Texas, and Bradley liked to change clothes like 5 times a day. So all his stuff was dirty, and I had everything was packed up, washer, dryer. This stuff was all gone. And I said, would you please take these down to your house and wash them? So she ended up with all of his clothes at her house.
Wow.
And that was her basis for. I said, yes, he was living here. See, all of his things. Well, no, his welding machine and all his wires and his $40,000 worth of tools and all that stuff. All that stuff's piled in my dining room
Okay.
But yeah, so
Okay.
he was
How
not
was
living there.
that? How was that a month and a half of you and him living at your house? How was it?
Interesting. Um,
Okay.
I this that boy, he had to take everything apart.
Mm,
It didn't matter what it was. I had more crap. I looked like a hoarder, and it wasn't me.
mm,
It was. I go straight to my bedroom.
okay.
That's my dining room because he had everything torn apart, wires tore out of it. Had to see how it worked.
Wow. Okay. And how was he doing being that you were living with
Place
him?
that.
How? Oh,
I mean, he is just quite. He had to see how everything functioned. He had to know everything. It was he. I think that was his mission, was to know everything. Although he would never ever meet that, even if had he lived a full life, he would have damn sure give it a good shot.
and how was he doing with his addiction for that month and a half that you got to see him more than maybe than you ever had before? How was he doing with that?
Seemingly fairly well, a lot better than he had been because he talked to me a lot. He expressed feeling. I tried to talk to him, drag things out of him, ask him questions that would get him talking, thinking about what he was doing. I even made a video for him, and just something simple that was watching it to a song, talking about my dad and little hands and me watching this little boy watching what his dad's doing, and he's learning this and he's absorbing all this, and this and he sat on the bed and he cried. I said, no, you're gonna sit there and watch this because this is what's happening. This is what you're doing.
Mhm.
This is being watched. And those little minds, you're starting the beginning of a vicious circle, and you need to think about all that. You got to watch what you do around him and around her son,
Right.
because there's somebody else there that's involved. That's not your child, but what are you doing? How are you affecting his life? Are you positive, negative? What is he seeing you do? That his tie to Chelsea was so much that my honest belief is that he couldn't have Oliver with him all the time, and Easton was there. It was not, could never take the place of Oliver. Don't get me wrong. It was the fact that he wanted that relationship with his son, and he couldn't have it. And here's Easton, who needs somebody there, and is just
Easton
begging
is
for attention because he wasn't getting it, and he felt the need to nurture him and he took him fishing, and he'd take him out, and let's work on the car or truck, or let's go change the tire, or let's go walk, and he enjoyed that. And then he kind of would get up and fix Oliver's school lunches and sneak them to school through sometimes.
all right. So we just have to establish Easton is Chelsea's son.
Correct.
All right, and he's like the same age as Oliver would have been.
Same class, yes.
Same
Same
class.
classroom at school.
All right. Okay, but also though the issue I'm hearing though here is that Chelsea and Bradley were kind of on the outs. That he wasn't maybe looking to leave her or break up with her or something maybe at the time of his disappearance, or what your belief.
Oh no, he was trying to get rid of her. She just wouldn't leave.
Okay. Okay. All right, but he still was very he still cared deeply about her
He
son
was
though,
torn
Easton.
with Easton.
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
Because
I
he
got
didn't
you.
want his heart broke again, because his dad, I mean, he had a big heart, and he knew that little boy's daddy done broke his heart, and he didn't want to see it happen again, but he was torn between,
Yeah.
I don't want that, but I don't want to hurt this kid and ruin his life either. And so it was really rough for him.
And anybody who is
struggle.
yeah, anybody who's dated a person with kids maybe has been in that position. When you feel the relationship's not going the right way, but you've gotten attached to somebody else's child or children. A lot of people have been in that situation. Can certainly relate to what you're talking about, Tony, for sure. Absolutely. So let's move up to that day, October 30th, 2019. He was actually at your house, He's in Chelsea's car. What do you remember about that day? You got to see him.
Everything.
No. Please, I know it's going to be tough, but maybe just keep it as objective as you can. I know it's a lot of emotions here, but just keep it to you saw him, the times, where was he supposed to be going? We'll just try to keep it as black and
He
white as
came
we
in
can.
and came in and woke me up early. He said, hey, get up. So there's something in there for you. And I said, what time is it? He said, it's 7:30. I said, I see 7:30 one time a day, and it's not in the morning. And he said, yeah, but there's something good. And I smelt it. He would come in there and cook breakfast. He said, sit up. So I make sure you take your medicine. I come in, and he brought me breakfast, sat down in bed, talked to me. And the conversation we had was amazing. I'm so glad that we had the conversation. The things that were said were, otherwise I would have been left feeling like, unsure if he knew how much I loved him, but the conversation that we had, it was a one of a kind that
Okay.
It was the bomb.
Okay.
And it was a guy moving out next door, and Bradley was, oh Lord, like I said, he was a hoarder. Cool things were cool. And he was a medic, and so he was giving him the big backboards like you get after car accidents,
Yeah.
And so Bradley was like hanging out and collecting junk. And Chelsea was calling, tell him to get my car home. I gotta go get Easton at 3:00 from school, and yada. He said, tell her I'm not here, I done left. I said, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna answer the phone. How about that? So I told him a little while later, and he said, okay, I'm leaving now. And I knew the time because his truck, he had almost finished. It was going to be the last day he was using Chelsea's car. He was taking it back. And the apartment manager had the little man come over and put the orange tag on there. Like, okay, you've been working on, you got the motor put in. Now you got 72 hours. You better get that put on there or we're moving it. And they had to have passed each other. Like Bradley backed out this way, and it was a horseshoe that went around the drive. And so he had to come in that way, and Bradley backed out and went that way. I mean, they were just like right there. And I watched him fill out. It was 1:47 p.m. in the afternoon, broad daylight.
All right. So your understanding is that Bradley had, of course, Chelsea's car, even though they were on the outs, but she was allowing him to drive it, and that he was going to return his car to Chelsea's.
Right. Easton had called him and begged him, I'm sure with some provocation from her, because kind of sort of how things worked with that lot. Begged him to please come down and play PlayStation tournament with him and da-da-da-da-da. And so that little boy on the other end of the line crying to him, and he gave in and said, okay, I'll come play, but just this one more time, and he went down, and then that's when he brought the car back and said, I'll be back. I'll bring it back. I'm going to get mom up in this. And he left at 1:47 p.m.
All right. And that's the last time you saw him.
He was headed. Yes. He was standing 1 foot in the car and 1 out, his elbow on top of the door. He said, bye, Mom. I'll see you in a little while, or I'll see you a little bit later. I said, okay, son, be careful. I love you. He said, I love you too. And he got in the car and he left. That's it.
Okay. How far is it from your place to Chelsea's? How far of a drive is that?
7 to 10 miles, maybe.
Okay, not far.
No.
7 to 10, not far at all. What was your idea? Being that he was leaving, you believed he was going back to Chelsea's. We have every reason to believe that's true. What was your understanding about how he was going to maybe get back to hit your place? Did he have any other plans the rest of the day besides playing PlayStation with Easton? Did you know about any of his plans for the rest of the day? No,
she was supposed to bring him back, and they were going to take Easton to a thing at the church called Trunk or Treat, because it was almost Halloween. It was the Wednesday night. See if you know what night of the week it was. Wednesday, they had it on Wednesday on church night. They had something called trunk or treat that they were going to take him to instead of going, publicly trick or treating or whatever. And so they were supposed to do that night. He had promised he would go with Easton, and Easton wanted him to go and not. Let's see, he wanted Bradley to take him, but that was the plan, and Bradley was going to drop him off when they come back.
All right, so that was supposed to happen that night, that October 30th. So it wasn't technically on Halloween; it was the night before Halloween.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So that was your belief for the rest of the day. Did you think then that you thought by the end of the day that Bradley would be coming back to your house, or do you think he was going to be going somewhere else after that?
Oh, no, he would have been coming back to his house, his room, his welding stuff and wires and hammers and stuff.
Yeah, okay. It
all the
sounded
stuff everywhere.
Tony, it sounds like more of his place than your place, the way all his stuff
It was. I spent a whole 12 hours cleaning up and organizing all of this stuff. And he came, and the next thing I know, I wake up and he's going, "Mom, I'm so sorry, but just listen." I said, "Bradley, no. You didn't go in there and mess with all that. But I was just looking for something, and I'll pick it back up." Oh my God, he tore it all back out again. And I was like, I just want to
You sound, your relationship with Bradley sounds like the relationship I have with my father. My father's a very neat guy, and I tend to be a little messier myself, so I can kind of relate to this. Although I don't think I had as much stuff as Bradley did. But okay,
nobody does. It's worse than Sanford and Son show. I promise.
Okay, so your idea that by the end of the day he would be coming back to your place. Now, of course, the story, I'm not saying we have to believe it, but the story is that he never made it to Chelsea's. But at any time in the next few hours, did Chelsea ever try to call you to say, you know what, Bradley hasn't ended up here yet? This, that, any conversations, calls like that, maybe within those next few hours?
Yes, and she called me a liar.
Okay,
I know he's still there.
Let's just okay. So she called looking for him, and you said he's not there.
I said he's not here. He done left.
Okay.
Well, he would have done been here by now.
Okay.
Okay. Well, he's not here, and he's not there yet. So.
Okay. So what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Are you thinking?
I said he probably stopped over at the flea market looking for some other piece of junk to come home, take apart. It's common.
Okay.
Or stop, see somebody, talk to him at the store. He could talk to anybody all day. He never met a stranger. So, I mean, we're in a little bit, there's one traffic signal here. There's just not a whole lot of stuff you can just get into. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. How many times would you say Chelsea called trying to find him? Just once, twice, 5 times? How many calls would you say she made to you?
Phone calls, probably 3, 4.
Okay.
Text or messages?
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Probably 50.
Wow. Okay, so she's calling, she's texting, she's wondering where Bradley is. Allegedly, he hasn't come back with the car yet. At any point in any of this, of course, you said, well, maybe he could have been there. At what point, maybe did you get a little nervous or anxious about
when it came
this?
Time 3 o'clock, when it was time for Easton to be picked up from school, and Easton was sitting outside the school, I knew he was too responsible for that. It would never have let that happen. I knew something was wrong.
How do you know Easton was sitting outside the school?
The car didn't get back for Easton to get picked up from school.
Yeah. How did you know that Easton was waiting there at school? How did you know that?
Well, Chelsea told me.
All right, sorry. So you didn't. I just want, once again, when we do things on here, I just want to make sure that when you say something like that, that we understand where that information came from. Was it you? Was it someone else? And so what you're saying is Chelsea told
me. My son is now sitting at school waiting on me, probably scared to death because he doesn't know anybody's going to come to get him.
Okay. All right. So that was the first time I guess you believed her. And so that's when you got concerned. Did you try to call Bradley? Did he have his phone with him? Did you try to call anybody to see if they've seen him?
Got into an argument a couple of days before, and he took his hand and just crushed it and threw it in his truck.
Oh, All right, so he did not have a phone with him when he left that day.
No.
Okay. Did you try calling anybody? Anybody who might have run into a friend or another family member who might have seen him? Did Chelsea? Do you know if Chelsea tried to call anybody else to try to track him down?
Chelsea did. She knew more of the people because they had mutual friends. Bradley didn't really bring friends around me. He was a reserved kind of guy. He wasn't a big people person.
Okay.
He had very few friends, but they were close friends. They were good friends, but it wasn't just your passive, fly by night friends. They were either good friends and he trusted him or just he didn't bother with, I mean, he was cordial. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't rude, but he didn't consider a friend. He considered them an acquaintance, and that's how he looked at it.
And maybe I should ask. Yeah, maybe I should ask you this. You were living there. Bradley is living there. Anybody else? Just the two of you living together, or is there anybody else living under the same roof?
My oldest daughter was staying with me at the time as well.
Okay. And was she there that day that Bradley left, or did she go to work, or was she somewhere else?
She was there, but she was asleep.
Okay. Did you, being that you were there, she was there, did you two have a conversation? Bradley hasn't shown up. Can you maybe tell the listeners a little bit about the conversations you had with your oldest daughter about all of this at the time that day?
Well, since they had gotten into a brother-sister argument the day before, she's having issues with that now. But they got into it, so she was kind of like, I don't even care where he's at.
Okay.
Maybe he'll cool off some before he could. I mean, kind of just a brother sister thing, and
okay.
She's having a really hard time with that.
Okay. So of course we get to the end of October 30th. Bradley's still missing. At least at that point, the car is still missing. Do you go out and try to drive around? Does Chelsea get somebody to drive her around trying to look for him? What do you do? Just speak for yourself for the rest of that day when Bradley, of course,
go missing on the week. You can't go missing on the weekend around here.
What does that mean?
You cannot. You can't make a report. You're not a detective to take it. They're not in their office, and they're only in there certain days up until a certain time. You got to wait.
Okay.
If this makes any sense, that car was not reported stolen until what was it? Sunday. That was Wednesday.
Okay.
Chelsea's car. That car was Chelsea's grandmother's car. Chelsea was buying it from her grandmother while she was in nursing school. Okay. So since we were where we live, we're in one town, and this town's here. We're in Pickering. She's in Rosepine. Just a little spot difference. And they reported the car in Rosepine. Okay. He was in Pickering with it. The information didn't cross paths in time. They had already picked up the car. It was in the...
All right, so we have to remember that, of course, the reason we're doing this episode is because Bradley's still missing here on May 30th of 2022, but the car was found fairly quickly now that you've explained that it was not Chelsea's car, it was Chelsea's grandmother's car, and Bradley's driving it. The car was found, my understanding, fairly quickly. Where was it found? How was it found?
The car was found 0.8 miles from our apartment from where it left, and backed up to a fence that just so happened to be right in front of his ex-boss's wife's house. She found the car there. She saw it there that afternoon about 6:30 p.m. So you're looking at 1:47 to 6:30 p.m., 5 hours.
Okay.
The car up.
So this former boss, what job did Bradley have at the time that this woman's,
Welding
I
and
guess, husband?
fabrication. Welding and fabrication.
Welding and fabrication. Okay. Your knowledge of Bradley, had he ever been to that house before? Had he ever been to that location before? To your knowledge?
Yes, because his boss, Matt, he worked for Parker Steel, and Matt Parker, which is the boss's son, and the other Parker, they worked there. Yeah,
Okay.
it was
All right. Do you
the
think that he
people
had
at the
been
store,
to?
the Circle K store at the end of the store. They saw Bradley 3 or 4 times a day.
Okay. Do you think he had
Always
been to
there.
his boss's house before?
Oh yeah,
He had been to that area before. Okay. Thank
oh
you. And
yeah,
you said the car was backed into a fence that's right near there.
yeah. It's actually a road that used to go all the way through, and since they put a big construction company on the other side, they closed the road off.
Huh.
So the blacktop is still there behind the road, but there's a big steel gate across it. You
Wow.
can't pass through there because people were trying to go in the backside of the construction company because it's way out in the country. So they
Yeah.
closed that off. I'm not sure what
Okay.
good that steel fence did when there's tracks going straight around the fence and back up on the road. But hey,
Oh, there is. Okay.
there's ways for I got to spend money on something.
Okay. Let me ask you this then. Since he didn't work for that guy anymore, do you know of any times that Bradley had gone over there after not working for that guy? Just once again, I didn't realize you weren't following Bradley around 24/7, but any reason that he would have been over in that area after working for that particular guy?
Oh no,
No?
there's
Okay.
nothing down there.
Okay. So it was his boss, I guess the ex-boss's wife or his boss's ex-wife that called it in to say some mysterious car is sitting outside my property. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, sort of. I did learn with Q down when we were getting the property permits for the searches. When we talked to Matt Parker, which is one of the boss's sons, he said that she had called him that night and said, "There's a car sitting out here,"
Oh,
and he
okay.
said, "There's nobody in it." And he said, "Well, is it bothering you, or are you scared or something?" You know, because he lived on over. And she says, "Well, no." He said, "Well, if you see something weird or something where you feel uncomfortable," he said, "call the police." He said, "Otherwise," he said, "I'll check it in the morning on my way out to go to work." Well, apparently she called sometime because he
Okay.
said the next morning we left out for work, so there was police cars around all around, and they were taking it and loading it up and this and that, and but so
Okay, let me ask you this just so we're clear on this. When did she call in that there was a car outside? How soon after Bradley left your
I don't
place?
know the exact. I don't know the exact time she called. I don't know the exact time she called it.
All right, but your understanding though is it was sighted there just maybe 3 hours after you last saw him, 3 or 4 hours.
Right, 1:47 to 6 o'clock. Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. But you already stated also that did Chelsea not call the car in as being stolen? When did this happen?
They didn't call that car in to being stolen until Sunday.
Wow. Several days later.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is October 30th was Wednesday,
That was a
Halloween,
Wednesday.
and then Halloween was Thursday. So now we're talking November 3rd is when Chelsea called the car in as being stolen.
Well, yeah, her aunt, the owner, or
Okay.
yeah, her grandmother's daughter get called. Yeah, lots of days.
Okay, great. So I guess what we're saying is this car gets called in, it gets collected from that location, but still by Sunday, Chelsea or nobody else knew that this car was in their possession.
No,
Oh my.
it
Okay.
got it back to because it went to the sheriff's department instead of a local police department handle it. It went sheriff's department because it was out in the country. So I don't know if you've ever been to Louisiana, but we're some backwards folks here.
Okay, I'm from Florida, so I'm just going to stay out of
The
that.
right hand don't never know what the left hand's doing. So the car was actually found before it was ever reported stolen. In case they had it already.
Mm-hmm.
But since they reported it to a different precinct, it didn't go through the proper channels, and nobody
very common. Okay,
Oh
so
no,
the
I got a
car.
better one for you.
All right, well, so I just want the listeners to understand this, and also we got a little choppiness of the Zoom going on here, so maybe I have to decipher this a little bit. So Brad leaves in Chelsea's, we'll just keep it simple, Chelsea's car, 147. A few hours later, this woman sees the car, but she doesn't call it in right away. It's 6:30, let's say through 4.5 hours after you see Bradley. The next day, the car is still there. She calls the police. They come collect the car. But because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, nobody could connect that car to Bradley.
Correct.
And even Chelsea and her family don't even call it being missing until Sunday, simply because nobody even alerted to them that this car had been found.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, that's a mess. All right. But she did. So maybe you can then explain between Halloween, of course, you didn't know that the car was found either, but between Halloween and November 3rd, what were you doing? What was Chelsea doing? What was anybody doing to trying to find Bradley in that time frame? What were you doing?
I went everywhere. I was having a nervous breakdown for real.
Mm-hmm.
It was cold. It was very, very cold.
Yeah.
And the day was, it was all, gray. It starts getting cold, and it was misty. The temp was dropping really fast. He didn't leave with proper clothes on.
Mm-hmm. What were you? Of course, you didn't know about the car being found at that point. What?
No, but he still hadn't got back there
Yeah.
with it, and he was threatening. Was calling the neighbor, their friend, that lived across the highway. She was friends with a girl named Danielle, and Bradley knew her husband, Jason. And she was calling Danielle, telling Danielle. Bradley went over there to their house.
All right, hold on. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I'm just asking you at the time, what were you thinking? Before you knew these things, what were you thinking? Of course, he's missing, the car's missing. Where did you think he went?
Until the time to pick him up, he was off farting around, talking to somebody, doing whatever he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he might have went and stopped at the fishing hole along the way. I mean, he never got in a hurry. So, but he did make things on time, but you just didn't rush him. So it didn't concern me at that point until it came time that, okay, school has ended and that baby hasn't been picked up. That's not Bradley. And now we've got a problem.
I guess what I'm asking is Halloween goes by, you don't see him, or the car. November 1st goes by. At that point, where do you think he went? What did you think happened?
It wasn't what I thought, Ed. It wasn't what I thought.
Okay.
The day after, on Halloween Day, I was exhausted because I stayed up all night waiting on him. Okay. And on Halloween Day, I guess I finally got exhausted enough that I laid across my bed and fell asleep for just a brief little bit. And weirdest thing happened. It was I remember it like it was so vivid. And Bradley walking in the door, he was pissed off. He was red faced. He's part Native American, so he's just red face. He get red face when he was mad. And he was muddy as hell.
So this is like a vision you had,
a dream vision, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
But it was so real. Oh my God! It was. He come in. He sat down in the chair in front of me. He never said a word through the whole thing. He sat down in front of me and he leaned over to start taking unlacing his bootlaces, and I could see the mud. He was slinging the boot string so hard that the mud was slinging and slapping and sticking on the wall. That's how real. Like I was watching. I mean, and I said, "So I see you got Chelsea's car back. Thank God." And he shook his head, but he still never looked at me. And for some reason, even though he was sitting right there in front of me in this, I said, "But where are you?" And he looked up at me and he had tears coming down his face and he just went, and he was gone. And I jerked away. And it was so real that I had picked up my phone, gonna call Chelsea, the car was here, and then I was like, "Wait, hold up, Bradley," and I'm yelling, and then I realized, oh no, no, this can't be, no. But nobody listened to me. I knew then. Bradley and I shared a connection. If he was going to get in trouble, Mama would wake up. I woke up. I'd be yelling at his sister, "Get on the phone. Come find your brother. He's done got his ass in trouble." I knew that. I don't know. It was just, I don't have that same bond with my other three. It's a different type of them. But it was that way with Bradley. So I took that very, very seriously. And I knew then that he was going.
Okay. So how do you find out that Chelsea's car was found? Obviously, this did not happen to, didn't kind of all start getting going and maybe till like Monday. How did you find out?
Me a message and said that her mother had received that her grandmother's car. They had picked it up off of Bundix Road, it was parked, it was abandoned, and with the keys in it. And they picked it up, and her dad had went up and got it from the impound and brought it to their house, and she could not get in it or touch it until she had finished paying it off because she was buying. So wow. She couldn't get in it or anything. And our lovely police officers here, they didn't even ask to process this car. Mm-hmm. They didn't do anything until I happened to mention 4 months later when Chelsea paid the car off that she just got the car back. Well, she just got the car back. Her dad picked it up. They kept it. Really? I go. Yeah, they turned around and called them, and it's just then they processed the car. 4 months later.
All right, so the car got found. It got taken to the impound lot or whatever. Nothing done with it. You've never been told there was anything of Bradley's found in it. Nothing like that.
Gotten from my grandfather's old place, but it was in the trunk. But that had been in there for.
Okay.
Been over there and picked that up for I don't know, a while back.
Okay. Anything unusual
about? It was exceptionally clean. And the funny thing is that car always stayed messy as hell. Mm-hmm. I mean, heck. Mm-hmm. Like stacks, like layers of stuff. Okay. Layers, like the CDC would be called other CDC.
Okay,
there was lots of stuff in it.
When did you first get to see?
Clean.
When did you first get to see the car?
When I found out that the car had been picked up, I went straight over to to Miss Parker's house and asked her, his ex-wife. Mm-hmm. And I told her Bradley was my son, and I had heard she'd called in the car, and I have pictures of it. Come on in, I'll come to you. She had actually took pictures of the car.
Wow.
The front, the back, and inside through the window. So I had pictures of the car, so I knew it was backed in because I could see the side. Mm-hmm. And she was smart enough to do that. She said, "I don't know who, why, but just left it." She still didn't even know what was going on. And then I told her, and she said, "Tony, what happened?" I said, "I have no clue. That's what I'm trying to find out right now. I don't know. Chelsea was threatening to have him arrested for a stolen car. I mean, I can see Bradley saying, okay, I'm ditching the car. There you go." I don't know. But didn't get there either.
Were any search, being that you then found out where the car was found, any searches, we're going to talk about recent searches very recently, but at the time in 2019, any searches done around that area to try to find if Bradley ditched the car and walked off? Any searches done like that?
Okay, here. I was told that they brought a dog out there to search for him. However, they didn't have anything to go off of. They didn't come for any scent item or anything. And this was a bloodhound. It didn't come for any scent item or anything. And this was by the little deputy that took the missing persons report. He called to check on me that Friday. And so when I mentioned it to the detective, he says, "What are you talking about? I don't know anything about any search. You must have wrong information." And I'm like, "Well, it came from your department because it showed up on my caller ID as Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office, and it's the same man that took the report. So y'all need to get your head out. Y'all need to get on your job and figure out who's doing what when, and who's supposed to be the boss, and who's supposed to, who's the chief and who's the Indian, because nobody knows what's going on. Nobody had a clue. It was chaos.
Sounds like it. When was the official missing persons report filed for Bradley?
The man came out and filed the official. What else? What day is that? Okay.
So his missing persons report was not filed to that Monday after they kind of all put it together that the car being there and Bradley missing and everything were connected.
Right. We already got that car. It's already been. Yep. They figured all out. Yep.
Okay. What about the keys to the car?
Y'all waited that long? Your car?
Mm-hmm.
Your car? You waited that long to file for it to be gone? Okay.
Okay. What about the keys to the car? Where were they?
In the car seat. In the car seat. I have a picture of them.
I'd like to see them. Maybe you sent them to me way back when we first started talking. So the car was unlocked?
Yeah.
So the car is found. They don't put it all together with Bradley being missing for several days. And when that's done, there's it sounds to me like a search that was done in the area that wasn't very good. And of course, we're going to get into some other things here in a moment. But the car seemingly doesn't have any damage to it, no signs of violence in it. You stated that maybe it was a little too clean given your experience with the car. It goes right back to Chelsea's family. No forensics are done with it. And that was kind of the status right there in October into November of 2019.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Very good. Now, we do have to remind everybody of something, that Bradley did not have a phone at the time when he left that day because, as you said, he had destroyed it in anger a couple days before that.
Correct.
Okay. Let's move on to this.
I don't know what the anger was about. He was outside working on the motor on the truck.
Okay.
But
okay, so we can't even talk about any pings or anything like that. Of course, he was only not even a mile away. The car was found not even a mile away from your house. But so I don't know if pings will really be relevant yet, but we have some maybe other things that we need to talk about before we get to that. What about these letters that Chelsea sent?
He was using my messenger.
Okay.
I have the messages for the week prior.
Okay.
Every conversation, because he was using my messenger to talk to her.
Okay, well, I'm probably more concerned about what happened at the day he went missing and after, but that's fine. What about the letters that Chelsea sent you after Bradley went missing? Why don't we talk a little bit about those? What do you want to say about them?
Okay. I was playing Super Sleuth. She was writing, and I wanted to get a visual because when I looked at the pictures of the car and I see where the seat was sitting in conjunction with the center console, okay, I knew that there was not enough distance, that was too short. Someone short drove that car to where it sat.
Okay.
Bradley and Chelsea drove the car at the same distance, but it was far back. So I had to call Chelsea to the house and got her to take me somewhere so I could stand outside and snap another picture of it to compare. And I was correct. The seat was much further up. Bradley could have never fit behind the steering and drove the car. His legs, all of it, he wouldn't fit. Neither one of them would have fit.
Okay. All right. And so what about these letters? Did she not send you some letters regarding Bradley's disappearance that
Yes.
she sent to you? What do you want to
She
say about
started
those?
immediately. She started immediately the same day when I called her to take me. I don't even remember where it was to take me. Just it was an excuse for me to get this picture to see where this car seat was driven because they drove it in the same spot. Every time we would stop, she's just writing. I was like, well, what are you writing? I'll let you read it when I'm done. Okay. All right. So it was like 8 pages. And she just she gave me those pages and I brought them home with me and I read them. Those didn't mean a whole lot to me, but they concerned me that I needed enough. There wasn't enough information to really be defensive, I guess. But they concerned me enough that I knew I needed to look into it some more. So I offered to go over there and clean her house. And
Uh-huh.
she obliged me. And she was at work. So I had 8 full hours to clean her house for her and locate other papers that were written. And
Huh.
it was on a notebook by itself. The one, you read them, correct?
I have not
The
recently, but I
papers?
did when you originally sent them to me. Yes. Yes.
One that talks about slumped over the steering wheel, and Jason used, or they used the Jason's truck to move the body. That one?
You describe them. You just go ahead and describe them, Tony. What Chelsea sent you.
Okay, there's one. It was 1 page, and it was front and back.
Okay.
And I happened to notice it up under a bunch of jackets because she done got the car trashed again by then. I looked backwards and I saw it. It was 1 page. It was written in one color ink. The other ones were all written in colored, all different colored ink, rainbow. It was every color. And this one, it shocked me because it was just like, oh my God, the stuff she was saying it wasn't general. It was specific things like he slumped over the steering wheel. The horn honked. He's his fingers are cold. And I'm going. I mean, I didn't. She's coming out of the gas station. I had time to snap the back of the page with my phone. That was it.
Okay.
So I printed it out later. That was 2 more pages, and then my ex-sister-in-law she used to be friends with her, and she fell asleep at her house, and she found the last few pages and ran them to my house and said, here, copy these fast before she wakes up and let me get them back over there. So they came about in 3 different sets, all of those pages.
And in your opinion, they describe a situation that Bradley could have been in that caused his disappearance.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move right on to that.
It's too specific.
Yeah, I can tell. And so we'll get right into that right now. You've already mentioned Jason and Danielle very early in this conversation. You've just mentioned Jason again within the last few moments. Who are Jason and Danielle? Who are they?
Jason, Bradley knew him whenever his mother met him, whenever Morgan's mom had him arrested for the saw.
Okay.
Okay. And Danielle and Chelsea were like that. 2 peas in a pod, good buddies.
Okay.
She called Chelsea at 3 o'clock in the morning to bring her a cigarette, and Chelsea's getting up and she's bringing her a cigarette. Flat out.
Okay.
I only met Danielle's wife, but I went to her house once and there's butcher knife holes in the wall, like where she's through. Butcher knife for Jason. There's no doors on the door. I'm like, I felt like I had walked into a bad B flick movie. Like I was okay. It's time to go. I need to leave. I just don't. Something just didn't feel right. That girl's scared to death now. She won't even go outside in the dark. Danielle, this Danielle girl. But her and Chelsea were best friends. But
Okay.
she was trying to throw Chelsea under the bus the same night.
Okay.
So
How
I
did
went over.
how did their two names come up in regards to Bradley's disappearance? How did their names come up?
Well, Chelsea, when she called me, when she was messaging me about where her car was, I know he's over there. I know he's there. You're just lying for him. I said, Chelsea, I would not lie for him. Your son is at school. He's got to pick that. Do you need me to come get you? No, just never mind. You're lying for him. He's okay. Whatever. I'm not gonna argue with you. Whatever. I'm more worried about my son at this point. They came in. She called Danielle to come get her. Danielle and Jason drove down and got her and went and got Easton from school.
The day that Bradley went missing.
Yes.
The day that Bradley went
And
missing.
they would not take her home. Most interestingly, I got a message about a month ago that said from Chelsea that went to completely, totally left field from what she had been saying all along. And she said, the last time I talked to Danielle, Bradley was not there, but my car was. Oops. Hold up. That does not even go with this scenario. Not from what's been told to the police, not from what's been told to me, not what's in the transcripts of everything I keep up with and have printed out since day one. It's been said, this don't go together.
Okay, hold on. All right, so let me clear this up. Let me clear this up. So what you're saying is that there is a belief that, of course, the story was that Bradley was leaving your place in Chelsea's car. We know it's Chelsea's grandmother's car, but we know what we're saying. Chelsea's car. Right. The plan was for him to go pick Easton up at school. That was the plan. However, there is a story out there that he did not, of course, go there, or of course we know he didn't end up there. But in the meantime, he kind of diverted over possibly to Jason and Danielle's house instead.
Correct. And might I add, he had purchased a trailer right next door to Jason and Danielle's to remodel to sell. So he had one right there, like in the same driveway, but on the other side that he'd going to remodel and sell. That's what he did. He liked to work with his hands. So in his spare time, he would like to do stuff like that.
All right, so let me ask you this. Where do Danielle and Jason live in relation to you, in relation to the school, and relation to where Chelsea live? How far do Jason and Danielle live away from you?
Here we go. We went and did every bit of this house, from our apartment to Jason and Danielle's, 0.3 miles.
That's it.
Okay. From Jason and Danielle's to where the car was found, 0.5 miles.
Half
in
mile.
a teeny tiny bit over.
Okay.
From where the car was found, like I said, all the way back. Ours was 8 miles. It's like a triangle, is what it is.
Okay.
The one road it's found on, straight down, it goes sideways and comes back out. That's it. It was
okay.
Nothing
so
just in a triangle shape, basically.
What we're saying is your place, Daniel and Jason's place, and the place where the car was found, all very close together. Very close.
Oh yeah, all within. The farthest was where the car was found in our apartment, which was 0.8 miles. Not even a mile. All of this, not even a square mile.
Okay, great. I got you. All right, so there is a belief then. So, how do you think Chelsea? Of course, this is just, we don't do theories on these episodes, but if she's going to say that she believes her car was over at Danielle and Jason's, then maybe we can't argue with her. How would she even know that?
She called Danielle. She said she heard Bradley in the background, and Bradley says she wants to call her car in stolen. I'm not driving it. Danielle, you take it to her. Danielle refused to, supposedly. So Danielle said Bradley left, walking into the woods looking, quote, shady. That's a new term that's used rather loosely apparently now.
Okay. All right.
And that was it.
All right. So we might have a different theory then that Bradley actually disappeared from Jason and Danielle's and not from where the car was found.
Correct.
Okay.
But then
What
who
if
would have
Jason?
made the conscious effort to make the car go down there if something you see
Right.
what I'm saying?
I do. Jason
Would have
and
made a
Danielle.
conscious effort if he left, take it.
Let me ask you this: what have Jason and Danielle said about all this?
Jason and Danielle, they raided Jason and Danielle's house.
Wow.
Didn't find what they expected to find. Jason and Danielle did submit to a polygraph. Jason passed. Danielle, she passed, but she did fail a question. And the question was, what she knew, or did she know anything about Bradley's disappearance?
Huh.
So that was my question. Well, exactly what in the hell do you have to fail to? That's like a big question right there. If you got that one, I mean, we're sure you got your name right, but I mean, you failed a question like that, and then she lawyered up, come straight back here, got a lawyer, and they're not allowed to talk to him now without their all legal up.
Okay. Danielle and Jason live next to anybody. Is there any chance that a neighbor might have seen Chelsea's car over that day? Anybody like that?
Not that I've spoken to.
Okay.
They're kind of spaced out. The park is kind of spaced out. So, and there's a lot of old humongous, and I mean, like almost redwood size humongous oak trees, like big old shady oaks is the park, and it's huge. So you really can't see the way they had them angled. You can't see a lot of what's going on. It's the way they're put in there. A lot of what's going on because of the trees and how the size of them. Unless you're just like really paying attention or playing behind somebody's tree, picking around to look. So,
okay. All right. So she fails.
But I
this
do
question.
know that Bradley bought the trailer. He bought the trailer next to Jason and Danielle to and resell, and that trailer, quote, someone moved into that they didn't know it was somebody, supposedly. That's the story. It was there 3 days, and then they woke up and the trailer was gone.
Okay.
He saw the man. They were short, small stature. That's all we had.
Okay. Any searches done around where Jason and Danielle lived then, or maybe they still live there? Any searches done, and that can move into. I know you've had a big search recently. What about that area of all of this? The searches, Danielle's and Jason's place, where the car was found. What about all of that? Let's talk about all that now.
Okay, the searches at Danielle and Jason's. They had a single dog come in. One dog they brought in from Red River Parish that came in and searched early on, probably 6 months in. I say early on, 6-7 months into the case, and didn't find nothing. But they said the dog was reported to have been brought into the location of a cold case, and they just kind of threw Bradley in there and we kind of touched on that too, or maybe you know what I'm saying? Like he was like mentioned afterwards, after they did the big story on who it was there for, a cold case, and that was kind of thrown in after the fact. So I don't think a lot of concentration was placed on that. But this past search that we had with Q, even with the sheriff's department telling them we've already searched that area, my coordinator was like, okay, well, even our dogs have bad days, and since you had one here, I'm taking 8 over it. So we're going to do this again.
Wow.
And we're going to make sure that we've got the area cleared before we move on to something else. And they did clear that area.
Okay.
They did clear the area.
Okay. All right, so some searches have been done. Maybe they can be done better. Sounds like you're going to do this again. But, of course, Bradley has not been
Yes,
found.
we
Nothing.
will be back in February.
All right. In February?
It's a long time, but
Yeah.
we have hunting season here, and the bylaws of the organization doesn't allow dogs and
Okay.
handlers out in the woods, in these woods, on hunting leases and such. So February, but she said until that time, his face gets planted on everything. They got magnetic signs going on log trucks. They've got his pictures, vinyl signs on the whole sides of buildings. They're having a big butterfly release on his birthday on July the 29th. So it's not going to be forgot about now. It'll be in the front of people's mind and hopefully seen enough that somebody will finally say, okay, I've had enough. I can't look at him no more. I have to open my mouth.
Right. How hard has this been? We're of course going to be, hopefully he will be found before this. Hopefully he'll be found alive, of course, Tony. But how hard has the last 2.5 years been for you?
Not my favorite child. I don't have a favorite child. You know, you have a different relationship with each child, but he was the one that says, "Oh, my mom, you got to listen up," and sticks me in the race car to go get gas, and then we hit the dirt roads, and we're doing 120 tripped curves, and I'm screaming my butt off, you know, and he's laughing. This is funny. It's well, you have a good time. I can't even talk then, you know. That was fun to him. He was very protective of me. So it really pissed me off whenever they would say, "Oh, he's just doing this because I hear he does this all the time." Well, he may do this from his dad or his ex-wife or whatever, but he's never, ever, not once went missing from mom. I've never called you telling you he's missing, and I didn't even know he'd done it from, you know, them. That was a shock to me too, but never for me. And I just keep waiting. I keep holding on to that little hope that he's going to show up and pop in and say, "Mom, look, I know you're pissed, but just listen. You're never going to believe this shit. Guess what happened?" And what I would do for that right now, anything, because I used to write, "Bradley, you took my card, my debit card to the bank. You took my card. You said you want to spend $20. You spent 140. What the hell? You know, well, I had to get this and okay. I give him all. It tore my family apart.
Yeah.
My youngest son, we don't even hardly speak anymore because he says he refuses. He says there's nothing wrong with my brother. My daughter says no. He just needed to get away from my baby. I said, "Ashley, it was cold. Your brother had no vehicle. He didn't even. He had maybe $20 on him. Where I don't even think he got. You know, this is a small town. We've got one traffic signal. You just really can't hide here." And then the fact that, you know, you have someone walking around bragging, you know, in certain instances that they've done something to him and it coming back and it's all coming from the same mouth makes me know that along that couples with what I know I felt from him, and I had that dream, vision, whatever. My ex-husband and I, we were friends even after we divorced. I said 3 words to him since Bradley went missing, and that was our son is missing. And I hung the phone up and I haven't spoken to him since. The search was the first day that I've seen him, and we still haven't spoken. It's tore, like I say, it's tore us all apart. Every aspect has been. Yeah.
Do you have a Facebook page or website set up for your son's disappearance? And if you do, please tell the listeners about it right now.
I sure do. There's we have searching for Bradley. It's on Facebook. In search of Bradley Stracener. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And then, well, there's a family page, but they couldn't get to that one. And the sheriff's department has one up. There is another page that has been put up by someone named that is anonymous. They're calling themselves Nose or Brown.
Huh.
And we do not know, cannot figure out who that is. They have these letters that are in my possession that have went to 3 people, and 3 people only. They have copies of that letter. I have the original. There was the detective, a newspaper guy that I went to high school with from Kitchen Soup Media, and who is that? And the first detective. There was another detective on the case first, and that is it.
That's weird.
But they end up on that page.
Huh.
So that leaves 2 options. I didn't put them there.
I'm sure you didn't.
I've not lost my mind so much as to say that I've got on the page and argued with myself.
Yeah.
But
okay, so there's a variety of places, and we have
and
we have this one place where you don't know where the person got the information. So somebody's leaking something somewhere.
Right. Okay. Yeah, somebody gave it to somebody. I don't know. And the thing is with the media, the guy that got it, he actually went to high school with Bradley and Logan. I don't know if I don't know if maybe I thought I've tried to think of it at all angles, like maybe the sheriff's department when he went to interview them, they kind of gave him our time or whatever, and he said, "Okay, well, let me switch this, around a different way." And because he had promised me, he said, "Miss Honey, I won't." He played basketball with my boys for 9 years. He's come to my house. He come out and filmed us handing out flyers, with a drone. He's been out and interviewed us on location. Lots and lots and lots and lots of man hours with cameramen and stuff went into this, and then nothing. I don't know if I can say that. I feel like maybe when it got to time to the police their due say of what they had to say about the case, that maybe I don't know, it wouldn't be the first time in a small town that somebody's basically shut the hell up, or it's just insinuating. Better not do that. And maybe he handed it off to someone else, but was in liberty to say, "Hey, obviously I did that." That's what my personal belief is.
Okay.
I can't see the detective handing it off. I mean, so ideally, I'd like for my son to walk in right now and say, "Hey, old woman, what you doing sitting over there? You got to." But I know in my heart that's not going to happen.
Tony, any final words before we complete this interview?
I just want to thank you for having the patience to hang there with me to actually get time to do this. And to anybody out there, I would say, if you know anything, try to put yourself in my shoes. If you've got a child, go back there, walk and look at them, and imagine yourself all of a sudden, they're just gone. They're just gone. They're not there anymore, and there's nobody to tell you anything. You could be that last little bitty piece. You could have seen something that you don't even realize you saw. Just, there's a Crime Stoppers, or call and tell them. They might listen, they might not, but at least say you gave it a try. I bet your heart will feel better if you do. I know mine would.
Tony, thank you for being on this
And I
episode of
appreciate
Unfound.
it.
Thank you for
And
being on this
appreciate
episode of
it. Thank
Unfounded.
you.
You're very welcome. And that was my Memorial Day 2022 interview with Tony James Doyle, mother of Bradley Stracener. I thank her for joining me and all of you on both audio and video for this episode. Every one of these disappearances breaks my heart. The person could be someone like Jody Husentrut, educated, professional, social climber, or Jason Jolkowski, young, naive, moral, whole life ahead of him, or Laverta Sorrell, mother, wife from one of America's minority groups. They all break my heart. Yet there's something especially sad, at least for me, for those people like Bradley Stracener. Yes, given Bradley's addictions, I doubt we would have been friends. Given his work, I doubt we would have had a job together. And given that he was a father, well, I don't have any kids, so I wouldn't have run into him at a Little League game. Still, I can't help but think about what would have happened if Bradley, on some kind of different timeline or in an alternate universe, would have never gotten into drugs and would have met higher quality women and had a chance to use his mechanical genius to work for Tesla. The odds of him going missing would have dropped to almost zero. As a couple of examples, think about Robert Downey Jr., genius actor, but he was this close to dying back in the late 90s, in and out of jail. Horrible drug issues, got fired from Ally McBeal. He was an ugly, arrogant human being. But then something changed. Somehow he pulled out of that dive he was in, got off drugs, met a fantastic woman, and now in 2022, he is one of the biggest movie stars in history. On top of that, we now get to see the real Robert Downey Jr. Funny, artistic, generous, a role model for any man. Then there's Nikki Sixx, founder of and bass player for Motley Crue. Back in the 1980s, his heart stopped multiple times due to heroin overdoses. There wasn't a hotel room he didn't trash. Run-ins with the law, canceled concerts. Nobody would have been surprised if one day Nikki Sixx disappeared. In fact, the odds were quite high at the time that he would, if not just straight out, die. But like Robert Downey Jr., somehow, before it was too late, Nikki figured it out. Now he's been married for several years. He lives in Wyoming, of all places. And if you've watched his show on YouTube or listened to his podcast, he is the kindest, gentlest person in heavy metal now. Even though with the tattoos and everything, he still looks like the 1980s version. So for Bradley Stracener and many others like him, who we've featured on this podcast, I can't help but believe this is the greatness they had in them, the kindness they had in them, the generosity they had in them. And had they shaken off their bad choices and predicaments, their friends and families would have gotten to see their full, awesome potential. And most importantly, they'd still be around those people who care about them the most. Instead, for some reason, they couldn't find the highway from the danger zone. I'll leave the theorizing up to you.
And that's the program. Right now, while you are in your podcast platform, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever, Give Unfound a 5-star review, a thumbs up, whatever that platform allows. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Densel, and you've just finished this episode of Unfound.